Can your smartwatch actually warn you before hypoxia becomes a problem in flight? We took 4 oxygen monitoring devices, including an Apple Watch, Garmin Aviation Watch, traditional pulse oximeter, and the Wellue O2 Ring, and flew them to 14,500 feet to find out. Being based in northern Nevada, we deal with some pretty significant density altitude during the summer. And being as mountainous as this state is, you are barely clearing some of the ridgelines while also dealing with heat and mountain wave turbulence unless you climb into altitudes where oxygen is generally recommended. To combat these concerns, we decided to have a turbo normalizer installed on the airplane. If we're going to routinely be flying in the teens, then it made sense to have a built-in oxygen system installed as well. Being physicians and military pilots, we have strict personal minimums on when to use oxygen sensors and supplemental oxygen to minimize the chances of having a hypoxic event. My name is Dr. Keith Ruxo. I'm one of the founding pilot physicians with Wingman Med, and today we're here to talk about using pulse oximeters to monitor your oxygen saturation in flight. The problem with hypoxia is that by the time you start to notice symptoms, you may actually already have impaired judgment, which then can make it difficult to address the situation. Last year, I bought a Wellue O2 Ring to monitor my oxygen saturation when I'm flying at levels where I want to wear supplemental oxygen, and to keep that monitored and let me know if I'm having any problems. I posted a photo of it online and I asked other folks, what might you be wearing to check your oxygen? The overwhelming response was that people use their Garmin or Apple smartwatch to check their oxygen. And it got me wondering, is that a good enough device to monitor your oxygen? Is that something that can actually give you a warning before you have hypoxic symptoms? And today we're going to be looking into that. So a traditional pulse oximeter has both an emitter and a sensor, and those are going to be on opposite sides of your finger. And they're going to send out 2 different wavelengths of light. One is a red light and one is an infrared light. And the way that works is it's measuring how much is going to be absorbed by the hemoglobin in your blood, and that's going to depend on how much oxygen is in there. So it measures the difference between those 2 light waves and calculates the percentage of oxygen saturation from the emitter to the sensor based on those light waves. Now, a smartwatch is different. It doesn't rest on your finger, it rests on your wrist. There's no sensor on the band, so the emitter and the sensor are both on the back of the watch itself. Meanwhile, there's a lot more tissue in your wrist, which makes the smartwatches more susceptible to inaccuracies. So what we have here is a ChoiceMed finger clip style pulse oximeter. This has the emitter and the sensor, and it goes over the top of a finger, and it has a power button, and it will have continuous monitoring. Now, one of the downsides of something like this is it can slip off fairly easily, and we'll look at that in flight. The other thing is it does make it a little bit hard to do tasks in the aircraft, whether you're trying to fly or you're trying to push buttons with this hand. And again, it can slip off fairly easily when you're trying to do that. But it does have that continuous monitoring. One downside is it doesn't have the ability to program alerts. So you have to be looking at it to see what the reading is. The continuous monitoring is nice, but the ability for it to fall off somewhat easily and the lack of alerts is kind of an issue. Now, the O2 Ring is the one that I've been using. So this is USB rechargeable. It does have an onboard screen that shows you visually what the numbers are. This is an FDA-approved medical device for monitoring medical conditions and oxygen saturation. And as a ring, it goes through, instead of the finger clip going top down through your finger like that, it has the sensors on the side, and it goes through part of your skin on the bottom of whatever finger that you use. Now, the interesting thing about this is not only does it give you continuous monitoring for up to 16 hours on a full charge, it does have an app associated with it that you can put on an Android or an iOS device. In that app, you can actually set alerts. So you can set minimum oxygen levels and maximum and minimum heart rate levels as well. And you can program those alerts to be a vibration alert on the device itself, or you can have an audible alert through the device. Now, if the device you're using happens to be the same device that you're using for navigation, whether you use ForeFlight or Garmin Pilot or something like that, and that is connected to your headset, you'll get that audible alert in your headset as well. Now, the Apple Watch, what we have here is the Series 11 Apple Watch. This is the most current one. We paid $429 for this one direct from Apple, and it does have pulse ox monitoring capability. Now, it is not a continuous monitor. The other thing about this is it cannot do alerts. And one of the main negatives of the Apple Watch is that you can't even see the pulse oximetry readout on the watch itself. You actually have to go into the app on your phone, or if you have the app on another iOS device, to see that readout. So no continuous monitoring, no alerts, and you have to have it paired with another device in order to even use it. One of the benefits, though, is if you're already embedded in the iOS environment, this is a pretty simple addition. Lastly, we have the Garmin D2 Air, which is their latest entry-level watch. We paid just over $600 from this, and we got it from Sporties. And it does have a nice host of aviation-specific features. Obviously, the more that you're integrated with the Garmin Pilot Suite, the more that's going to benefit you. It does view the pulse oximetry on the device itself, so you don't have to use another app for it or another device to look at it. But like the Apple Watch, it is on demand only, so you have to request that reading, and it will not give you programmed alerts. So you're just using it to check on demand. Both of these watches also in their literature tell you that these are for lifestyle measurement only. They are not medical grade devices, and they should not be used for medical purposes. And that's not necessarily what we're doing today. We're looking more for something to give us a warning about a potential problem. Installed in the aircraft is a mountain high oxygen system, and we're using their O2 D2 pulse demand system. The benefit of the pulse demand system is it only gives you the oxygen when you need it, and it really can save on the volume of oxygen that you're using. So each pilot will be connected, cameraman will be connected as well, so everyone will have a nasal cannula. For the test protocol, so I will be the pilot all day today, and we have Andy Mariner here. He's going to be our guinea pig. He's going to be wearing all 4 sensors. Andy is the current deputy commander of Nautic in Fallon, and he's a former commanding officer of the Top Gun school as well. So he's a great pilot, but today he's just guinea pig. So the test protocol is we're going to climb at a 500 foot per minute rate of climb all the way up to 14,500 feet. Again, he will have all 4 sensors on. Everyone else will be on oxygen. He will have the nasal cannula on, but he will be disconnected from the O2 D2 system, and we'll go all the way up to 14.5. If he starts to have symptoms prior to hitting 14,500, we will immediately connect his oxygen and level off. Once symptoms resolve, we will resume the climb to 14.5. Along the way, we will be checking the pulse ox information from the different devices we have. We're going to see how easy they are to use, how readable the information is, how quickly we can get that information. Once we're at 14,500 feet with nobody having any symptoms, we will disconnect Andy's oxygen again, and we will look at his oxygen saturation decrease with all of the devices. Once he has symptoms one more time, we will reactivate the oxygen for him, and then that is effectively the end of the test, and we'll come back home. If at any time I have symptoms in flight, we're going to switch that O2 D2 over to night mode, which is going to give you oxygen at any altitude. We're normally going to be running it in D10, which is daytime 10,000 feet. So above 10,000, it will kick on. But if I have a problem, we're going to switch it to night mode and have an emergency descent below 10,000 feet. At no point in this video are we trying to suggest how you should or should not be using oxygen or oxygen monitoring in your cockpit. You need to be following FAA regulations and your own personal minimums. So this is just for information purposes on how these different devices work.
All right, so right now we are taxiing out from the hangar area. So we're going to taxi down to runway 21. I'll bring this up as well. So I'll bring up my ForeFlight. So we'll have this on, and then here is the actual health app. And we will go to our dashboard. And so it's constantly monitoring. Yeah, that's what you're at right now, 97. That's monitoring the O2 ring. Turn the oxygen system on, and we can see our tank pressure there. And then if we go in the settings here, on this app, this is where we can do the O2 reminder, and that's going to be on the device and on the dashboard. So the dashboard's in the app, which will send an audible alert to the headset. But I have the threshold set to 85% on that Wellue O2 Ring. I'm going to get both the audible and a vibration alert on the device. And so then there's pulse rate. You can set low and high for pulse rate monitors as well, which is something that none of these other things can do.
Does the Garmin constantly monitor, or it's only going to do it if we tell it to?
Only if you tell it.
Right.
Yep.
Now I can't figure out how to tell it once it thinks we're flying.
All right, we are at 6,500 feet, so oxygenation still looking good, as it should right now. And let's go back to our dashboard here. So you're going to see some variations.
Sure.
Traditional finger clip pulse oximeter. So continuous monitoring, that's a good thing. Just no alert capability.
Hard to do anything.
Hard to do anything with it actually on. We got the Wellue O2 Ring, so pretty stable on there, not really going to fall off. Still able to, punch buttons, fly if you have to. Normally I'm the one wearing it while I'm flying. Then we have the Apple Watch here, where we can manually activate the pulse ox. And let's get it to start another one. But the flight is a little bumpy, and so it's getting a little mad. And not really, yep, there we go. We'll try another reading. And we're still climbing at 500 feet per minute. We're about to pass through 7,500 feet. And recording canceled again on the Apple Watch. When I posted a picture last year of my Wellue O2 Ring and asked how do people monitor their oxygen in flight, the vast majority of the comments were, I just use my Apple Watch or my Garmin watch. And so what we're finding here, and my wife has a Garmin watch as well, and what she's been experiencing in the past is that it's difficult because it really wants you to hold very stable, and sometimes little airplanes like this are not very stable in the wind, a little bit of buffeting. You got to hold your arm, very still, and it's not really reading. And then the Apple one still has to translate. You still got to read it on your phone, and it still hasn't picked up a reading since we've gotten airborne. It's canceling them, or it's just not sending it over to the phone. So we're not really getting any useful information out of that, at least not yet. We'll see what happens when we get a little bit higher and if the air is a little bit smoother. Hey, we finally got one from the Apple Watch.
But just so you're tracking, this thing is actually
it's tracking continuously.
It's gone from 92 to 93 to 95.
So the Garmin is tracking continuously, which is cool, and it stays.
So maybe it does that once you're airborne, right?
Yeah.
It's actually tracking it.
And that one is showing 95 now. The O2 Ring is showing 97, 95 on the finger. That
one showed about 94.
That one showed about 94. Yep, 94. We are now passing 9,700 feet, so pretty soon the oxygen is going to kick on. And pretty soon we will start to see Andy's oxygen start to drop below 90 most likely.
I feel nothing different right now.
Yeah. Generally, people don't start to experience symptoms until they're below about 87 to 85%. All right, so we're over 10,000. So now Andy's dropping. He's already at 90 on the finger. We're at 94 on the O2 Ring, 94 on the Garmin, and let's try and trigger another Apple Watch. And the air's a little bit smoother now as well. It says it completed, but it didn't pop over here. That seems to be a trend where it says it's completed on the Apple Watch, but it doesn't actually pop over here. And if we go, yeah, it's still, even when we click on that.
Try another one.
Yep. We are about to pass 11,000 feet on our way to 14.5. Oh, there we go. 95. So 93, 94, 95. Garmin showing 93, 94 on the O2 Ring. So there are FAA rules associated with oxygen use, which typically means you don't have to start using it until you're above 12,500 feet. Human physiology says that above 10,000 feet is when you probably should be wearing oxygen. So I think if you're going to operate above 10,000 feet, it's a good idea to be checking your pulse ox. And if the Apple Watch is what you have, you can certainly use that to try and check it. If you have the finger clip, maybe keep it close by and use it somewhat regularly. Have a timer perhaps, and on an interval start checking that blood oxygen saturation. Whereas the O2 Ring is given that constant monitoring, and we're down to 90 on there, 91, 92 on the finger. This one did not come over, but the Garmin is showing 91. All right, so you're dropping to 88 on the O2 Ring, 89 on the Garmin.
I still feel totally fine. That one came through at 93.
That one came through at 93. That's significantly different than all the others. The others are already in the 80s, and that one still said 93.
And I always know, like, when I do stuff like this, I take nice deep breaths. Like when you're up high, you want to hold the oxygen in and let it get into your bloodstream, right?
Yeah, because if it's just coming in and out, it doesn't have as much time to get into your blood.
It does give you an alert at 12.5 for putting your oxygen on, right?
Yep. Now the FAA does actually offer hypoxia training, and they usually bring it to events like AirVenture and Sun and Fun. And they also have it on site in Oklahoma City. So those are some things that people can do as well to get their own training. And I believe it's completely free. So Apple says recording complete. We'll see if it comes over. Kind of drop down into 90 and then back down. Now we got 87 on the finger stick. What's the Garmin showing? Garmin showing 92 now. So we're passing 13,200 feet on our way up to 14.5.
And I know my symptoms generally start below about 85% is when I start to feel the effects. And the first symptom I'll get is like oxygen hunger, right? Like you want to breathe faster.
Yeah, I didn't capture that last one.
I'll do another one.
Nope, didn't translate over.
Oh, no.
That's weird. 90 here, 89 there, 93. It's hard to tell on the Garmin how fast it's updating.
I don't think it updates very fast. I think it's about every 5 minutes is what it's watching it.
So it seems like the Garmin watch is updating about every 5 minutes. I'll have to dig into the literature that it came with and see if there's a little bit more detail there. But at a climb rate of 500 feet per minute, that's 2,500 feet. So that your oxygenation can change quite a bit, 2,500 feet, once you're above 10,000 feet. So it may not give you a pretty rapid alert to that, or a rapid reading, I should say. So we're almost at 14,500. The autopilot's going to level us off here. We haven't had a reading in 4 minutes translate over.
3 that have completed.
Yeah, so 3 have been completed on the Apple Watch without syncing over, so no ability to read that. And then we're at 90, high 80s, low 90s on the O2 Ring, mid 80s on the finger, the finger clip one. And right now, the Garmin's just giving us and we're showing low 90s there. So 14,500. I'm going to go ahead and level us off.
So I will say that my fingertips now are cold.
Okay.
Right? Like more so than the rest of my body.
Okay. So that's what you said was your first symptom.
I don't feel oxygen starvation like I usually do. I don't want to breathe heavily. I'm not trying to suck oxygen.
Yeah.
Take nice deep breaths through my nose totally normally. I definitely have color vision still because I can see the magentas, blues, and the greens. I will say a little bit of my periphery vision maybe is starting to go.
Okay. Yep.
But I would argue I think most of these are showing me, that's saying 97%, which I don't know if I agree with.
Finger monitors are also subject to cold fingers, skin temperature,
Sure.
Skin color, things like that. If you have less blood flow because it's cold, it's not going to get as good of a reading. All right, let's go ahead and plug your oxygen in and see how everything goes. So I've got your line right here.
So we just took 4 different options to measure your oxygen saturation while flying up to 14,500 feet. Both the O2 Ring and the finger clip pulse oximeter performed pretty much as expected. What was unexpected was the Apple Watch just didn't really want to sync its measurements over. It kept telling us it was getting measurements, but it would not sync it over to the phone. And like we discussed before, the fact that you have to have that app on the phone, which may be a different device than you're using for navigation, is a little bit annoying. The fact that it wouldn't sync the data over was kind of a deal killer. Now the finger clip, again, worked pretty well until towards the end. It just didn't seem to function as well. It just kind of dropped off. We switched people and it seemed to be working fine. So I'm not really sure what happened there. Andy's symptoms are that he'll get cold fingers. And so when he gets that tingling, cold fingers, that might be what's impacting it on the fingertip there for that pulse oximeter. What was most surprising was the Garmin watch. I thought that it wasn't going to track continuously, and we don't know if it was tracking all the time continuously the way the O2 Ring and the finger clip one were, but it was updating somewhat regularly. We didn't really get a good time on that, but it was updating pretty regularly and it was staying within a couple % of the other devices, and it's readable right there on the watch. It also wasn't giving us a lot of error messages. My wife has this different Garmin watch, and when she was trying to use it the other day on a flight, it kept telling her, hold still, couldn't get the reading. This aviation watch seemed to do a lot better than her regular fitness watch that she has from Garmin. So on the whole, the Garmin was pretty surprising. I think the main difference is going to be the O2 Ring and the Garmin watch. If you already have a Garmin watch, especially an aviation one that has this feature, it's a pretty good option. The one downside is something that the O2 Ring does have, and that's those programmable alerts. So if you're looking for that constant monitoring and the ability to alert you before you're going to become hypoxic, that O2 Ring is probably the better way to go, but the Garmin is a pretty decent option, especially if you already have one. And remember, if you or someone you know is having trouble with your FAA medical certification, reach out to Wingman Med at wingmanmed.com.